what you do in life is up to you, but always try to do something that you can do for yourself.
Okay, welcome to another edition of the Journey to Freedom podcast. And I'm Dr. B, your host, and just excited every time you get a chance to interview and talk to people that have been doing life for a while. And today I have a special guest on today, Walter Nelson, who just, as we were talking, told me he has lived 3/4 of a century, which is when we think about we're interviewing 100 Black men this year, and we're thinking about the last 75 years goes all the way into the 1950s. And when we think about the 1950s and what that meant for civil rights, what that meant for dads, what that meant for affirmative action, what that meant for the 90s and the mass incarcerations and all the things that have happened that have brought us up to this point. When we get to talk to somebody who's been around a little bit, it just is a great place to be, because when we think about success and success leaving clues, and if you've listened to any of the podcasts here, I talk about that a lot. And defining what success is, when you find folks that are excited and happy and can't wait to even do more in this world after all the things that got on, then you've met with somebody who's been successful. And so, Walter, thank you for being on today. Thank you for taking your time out. I know I apologize for some of the technical difficulties that we had getting going, but I think we got it. And we'd just love to hear your story and where you came from as we move forward in this podcast.
Okay, well, it's an honor to be on this podcast, and I'm grateful that I was invited. My story begins basically in the late 50s. We can say the late 50s. I was raised and born in Charlotte, North Carolina. And at that time, and during that time, it was a segregated city, very segregated city. But I don't want people to think that that's really was a negative when it came to the Black community. I am a product of that segregated Black community. And I think that what a lot of people may not understand is that during those periods of time, especially from my time, the middle 50s to the early 70s, the Black community was self-contained. We didn't have to leave the Black community to do anything. So I had the opportunity to be surrounded by entrepreneurs. My father was an entrepreneur. My father quit his job and his 8-to-5 job. He set me down as a young boy of about 8 or 9 years old and gave me the reasons why he had quit his job. And basically, he was working in a warehouse, and good worker and no problem there. But every time they would hire someone new, especially a young white fellow who may not have been as old or didn't have the experience, he would train them, and they would start off making more money than he was making. And he actually taught me a good lesson. He didn't get mad. He told me, those people that employed him, he told me, they're good people. So they, tried to do everything they could for me, but, they're white people. And so he didn't expect no more out of them than what he was receiving. So he decided that he would do his own thing, and he became a rural garbage sanitation garbage collector in the rural parts of Mecklenburg County. And he had, just one little open type truck, not a real garbage truck by no means. But after he told me that, I began to help him. I worked on the truck and with him. And that was probably the biggest advantage that I had in life, was that I was able to work with my father, just me and him, during the summer months when I was out of school, and he taught me a lot of lessons, and so did my mother. So I owe a lot to him. When I was about 13 or 14, he told me, he said, Walter, said, what you do in life is up to you, but always try to do something that you can do for yourself. He said, if you work for yourself, then you're going to be the first one hired and the last one fired at all times. And so that's kind of the way that I went about and got my picture of life, was through him and through his other associates, because as I say, the community was segregated, so the black entrepreneurs would come together. He, being a trash collector, wasn't looked down upon because other people were in the moving business. When I say moving business, I mean the storage and van lines. They would move people across the country. We had people who were, of course, brick mason and cement finishers who had their own businesses. And I think on my street, it's still, the street's still there. The home's about gone. It was Augusta Street. It's 2 blocks long. It's in Charlotte. There was 1, 2, 3, 4 black entrepreneurs that employed 50 to 60 people out of that community. 2 blocks, 4 entrepreneurs, where people in the community could go and work for people who lived in their community. And Augusta Street wasn't, unusual. You could go down the street and find entrepreneurs, people who ran the furniture stores, the barber shops, the drugstores, the shoe shops, the clothing stores. All of that was self-contained, and I got to be around and was raised, by those entrepreneurs, and developed an entrepreneurial spirit. When I went to school, it was I guess my junior year in college was the first time that I ever had intermingled with students of another race.
Mm-hmm.
So I went from first grade to 12th grade, all black situation in Charlotte, going to the black schools. I remember when being in the first grade, that must have been close to the time of the Brown versus education decision. The first grade teachers came in, and one of the quotes was, that I remember, was they was getting us prepared because by the 6th grade or 7th grade we would be going to school with white students, so we needed to be prepared. Well, they started that struggle of integration here in Charlotte. And that was when I was in the first grade, and they were saying I'd be in the 6th grade. I'm now receiving Social Security, and they're still wrestling with how to get the schools integrated on a equal basis. So I've experienced all of that. After graduating from my high school, West Charlotte, I went to Hampton Institute. I stayed there 2 years and decided that I would transfer to UNC Charlotte to get kind of accustomed to what this new dynamic was going to be, with me being exposed and going into a integrated society. And, when I went to college at the UNCC, it was the first time I was met with limitations. Up until that time, the first 14 years of education, my future was unlimited, according to my instructors. But when I got to begin to register at the college here, UNCC, I was met with limitations. There was doubts on whether I could succeed in the accounting field. That's what was told to me directly, because they hadn't had anyone else of my race to succeed. So that dawned on me. But I considered myself a grown man, and then I was junior in college, and the schools were going through integration, and I would often express to my friends, because they were busing little kids from their neighborhoods, inner city neighborhoods, out into the suburban areas. So they would come in with the buses and pick up the little black kids and load them onto the buses, and then send them 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 miles away from the communities that they were living in, out to the suburbs to educate, to be, to integrate the schools. That was child abuse. I often express that was child abuse, and we have to be very careful. So, of falling into something without a plan, and that's what we did here in Charlotte. Is that we went into the situation of taking this new dynamic that was presented to us and falling into without having any concrete plan of how we wanted it done. We just kind of followed the dictates of others. So that's sort of my story, my background, is where I come from. I've been a CPA here in Charlotte for many years. Before that, just to give you an idea of the entrepreneurial spirit, when I finished UNCC with a degree in accounting, at that time, the firms, I didn't have to do job interviews because there wasn't many Black students with accounting degrees, and the national firms were looking for people, looking for Black accountants so that they could, at least fulfill the quota of whatever they had to do. So I didn't have to really interview. So but I got a job offer from what's called a Big Eight accounting firm at that time. And I went downtown, and I think the office was on something like the 30th floor or something like that. So I'm sitting in there, and they're giving me my marching directions. You're going to go to Chicago for 6 weeks, and when you come back, you'll be part of the audit team, and you'll leave here on Sunday, and you'll come back on Friday, and you'll travel the states of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And, here I am, I have a degree, college degree, and most of the men that I had been exposed to coming up didn't have people telling them what they were going to do. I looked at my father, who had 3 days of education, but he ran a company that had 14 to 15,000 customers with 3 days of education, and nobody was telling him what he was going to do. And so I've discovered that, being an entrepreneur, the biggest thing is freedom, is that you have your time, and time is the most precious commodity. So people were struck, and they were upset when I turned that offer down to go with a Big A firm and started out as an accountant. And but when I was an accountant getting started now, I had another job. I was actually running the trash business that my father had created. So that's basically my story and how I got started, and and here I am today. So, but that's a very important part of my life, and I tell people when they come into the office, because I'm always working with older people now, younger people who are just getting started. I've seen the progression during the years of how Black wealth has started to increase. And my deal is when they come in, I tell them, we already got everything we need. We just don't manage it. We don't need another thing. We just need to manage and get organized and get powerized so that we know how to control our own economics. But that is my story. That's where I come from. That's my background. Well, you got any other questions? I'm glad to entertain.
Yeah, no, I do. There's so many questions that have come from that because I'm learning so much. And one of the things that, when I've gone back and, been in education, and we talk about the experience of African Americans, especially in the South where you're at, from the 1920s, all the way through the 60s. There's a lot of historians who say it was because it was segregated Black children were being educated, the communities were raising them, that the housing and the communities ran themselves, and there wasn't a need at that time, in the beliefs and systems are there that can't we just leave us alone and let us do our thing, and then as civil rights begin to increase, because I think we needed as a country to be able to reach some of the heights and places that we are. We couldn't have done it in our own communities. However, seems like we had to take a step back in order to move forward. Like, because now you're being bused, and you can maybe attest to some of this, that you're being bused to schools that might take you an hour to get to school, an hour to get home from school. The teachers at the white schools did not want to educate the young Black children and put them in the back of the room and didn't give them all the tools they need. And you made it out of there. You were able to go to college, even though they told you probably weren't going to make it, but you did anyways. And you ran a company. And what did you see some of that during that time? I mean, now that you can look back, hindsight's 2020, and obviously when you're part of it, you probably didn't notice it. But now looking back, can you see how it maybe was a step back in order to move forward with all the integration things that were happening?
Yeah, there's no doubt that integration hurt the Black community, the places of the Black business community. That's not a if and a but.
Okay.
It hurt the Black community. And again, as I said, business-wise, economic-wise, we didn't have a plan. The march to civil rights, I think I've had some younger people in that asked me these questions. And the march to civil rights was not basically that Black people wanted to sit next to white folks in the movies. That wasn't the crux of it. The crux of it was when I went downtown and I bought a coat or a shoe out of a big department store, I wanted to be treated with the same respect as everybody else who was buying those items. So instead of feeding me in the basement, I wanted to sit on the street level too, street level floor. Now, this is 2024, and I graduated in '67. My wife is a product of Charlotte too. We went to high school together. Her first job was working at a five and dime Woolworths on the main thoroughfare through downtown in Charlotte. They gave her a cashier's job, running the cash register. Just to show you how deeply segregated it was, Blacks would come to the window and look through the window to see if she actually was going to ring up a candy sale, because there was no Black cashiers on the streets, on the main level in Charlotte. So it was those type of situations that we were trying to get through integration. Not that I wanted to have my clothes cleaned by white cleaners, which I have to do today, and did not have to do then. I was probably 24, 25 before I went to a white dry cleaners. I had no need to. All of my cares and things was taken care of by people who ran those and lived in my community. So those are the type of things that we just did not plan, that our businesses would be wiped out. You've been to Charlotte, so I'm great that you've been there. When I went to high school prom, my high school prom, there were three. Charlotte population was probably close to 150 to 200,000. But back then, there were three 24-hour Black restaurants that I could choose to go to after the prom. Now the city is about almost 1 million people, and I can't think of one Black 24-hour restaurant. So to say that it did not impact the Black community negatively would not be true. Yeah, we had our own economics, and that's what I try to tell the people that come in who may not be aware that they may have a negative view of the Black community and what the Black community was all about. But I was lucky enough to see that there was a lot more positives than there were negatives. And I'm not saying that we should have stayed segregated. I'm just saying we just didn't have a plan, and we followed the plans of others who did not have our interests to the forefront. We have to take care of our own.
Yeah, I know you talked about the Black welfare as well, and jobs that weren't available, jobs that that men weren't able to get, that were too far away, that didn't have transportation. I hear all the way from the South all the way to even California, where in San Francisco that was happening. And then they decided that Black men could not be part of the family unit, where if you were going to get welfare during that time, that for women that had kids, the man was not allowed to be in the home, otherwise they wouldn't qualify. How do you think that impacted, from your viewpoint, being able to see that, like Black men's self-esteem, Black men's ability to take care of their family, all those things that make us unique as men to be able to do, and not being able to take care of some of those tasks?
Right. One of the things that we as Black men need to realize is that we who call ourselves entrepreneurs need to employ. Black men have to depend upon other people to be employed. People who may, again, not have their interests at heart. So that was one of the things during those times. There was a lot of Black men who were employed by other Black men. And so that was a dynamic that we probably no longer enjoy. But those nice jobs, those accounting jobs and other type jobs, those are what we were marching for. The opportunity, because government monies were going to these institutions and going to these big corporations and those type of things. So we wanted an equal opportunity to enjoy and to profit off of those basically government funds that we were paying taxes, but not getting the benefits of what they were providing to others.
Wow. The you said, okay, so you graduate, and you have all these opportunities to be a CPA in different companies, and you decided to turn that down, run your dad's um, trash business. At some point, did you just become a CPA that was in the community, and you get let go of the trash business? How did that all evolve to you ending up where you're
Well,
able
man,
to?
well, what happened was I learned a lot of lessons when I was running that trash business. We had about 30 to 35 men that we employed, and basically what happened, we had this. I had my degree in accounting. I was doing little taxes on the side and helping folks the best I could. But we had this mechanic, and his name was Banks. He was a white fella. He was retired, and but Banks was he was an older man. He was a real mechanic. He wasn't a parts changer. He was a real mechanic. And so Banks, as long as you let him have his Millers, he was okay. As long as he could drink a Miller every 30 minutes, every hour, he was fine. So my job was to basically, I would go with Banks, we'd pick up parts, or we would go out with him to pick up a truck. And I observed him, and Banks was just a regular old fella, but he was an expert at what he was doing. That's what dawned on me. Is this man is an expert. I mean, just to take an example, we went into a shop to pick up transmission parts, could be laying everywhere. So we needed to redo a transmission, and he told the parts department person, said, I need this gear, this gear, this gear. The parts department person said, no, you also need this gear. And Banks said, no, I don't need that one. And the man got indignant because the gear edge of the gear was chewed up. And Banks told him, so I don't need that. You see, the other edge is nowhere on the other edge. So that means it's free willing. So what I'll do is just turn the gear around, and now the beat up edge will be free willing, and we won't need to buy that one. So when I saw that, that inspired me to become a better accountant, which meant I needed to be a CPA. And I went into deep study for about 18 to 24 months to make sure that I could pass the CPA test. But that was basically my inspiration for moving forward in the accounting field and becoming a CPA and not just relying on the garbage trucks. And during that time, I was able to serve low-income community, which we were a part of. We were, I mean, that was where I came from. So it wasn't like I'm going into a bad situation. I'm used to it. I know it, but I became a resource. Unknowingly, I became a resource at 25 and 26 years old because I was one of the few people that the the inhabitants of that community could come to, and I could decipher a letter for them that they may have received from the Social Security Board or something they received from the city, of course, something they received from the IRS or whatever. And so there would often be these people that young and old that would come by and seek me out. And so I decided that, this field of CPA might have some value to it. Because at first I really didn't value it because I had the trash business. But after doing that and becoming a CPA, we opened up when I say we, it was just me, open up this CPA practice. And I've been here for, I don't know, over 40, close to 45 years now. So we've serviced the entire community. And, as I said, I'm very thankful because 95% of my clientele has been African American, and they've supported me and my family. And all that I have to kind of, not kind of, but have to give them credit for it on the financial end. So hopefully, I've won their trust over the years of doing their work and trying to better their position. But yeah, it was because of that mechanic that I became a CPA and established the practice in the Black area of Charlotte. I try to convince some of my other people, if you open up a practice, because I didn't have a practice on the main thoroughfares, if you open up a practice in this particular area and treat the people with respect and dignity, they're going to reward you with success. I mean, I've seen it too often, but that's what we did. And after I started practicing, like myself, my kids decided that they wanted to be CPAs. And so my son, he went to college, he became an accountant. My daughter, she's a CPA, and she did the same thing, so she's a CPA. And so we started a family, basically a family practice that's been going now for 20, 25, 30. Well, it's been going for 45 years if you just take the time that I was in it by myself. But since they've been out of school, we've done a lot. I have nephews that wish they could have got into it. They got to the street too soon, but it's not too late. They may still come to it. And I hope they would come to it because it's been very rewarding to see people come in and with a dream, and then that dream gets accomplished, and you look at it and you know that you played a part in making them help reach their goal. So we've been a part of the community here in Charlotte, and I've dealt with all types of religion. I was the accountant was some years ago for the Nation of Islam. Even though I'm not Islamic, I'm Christian. I've been just Seventh-day Adventist, Jehovah's Witness. I've had them all. and still have them all that come. I have people now in California and New York because of the technology. The fellow that recommended me to you, he was in Hawaii, and I was doing his mother's taxes. And so I guess he said his mother kept talking about myself, and so he decided to call me, and that's how I met Mr. Young. But so it's just been things like that. I have clients that I've never seen. I mean, I've had clients probably 10, 12 years that I never would know if they walked up because of the technology. They've communicated through the emails and text messages. So it's just been, just as I get to be these 3/4 and look back over it, it's been rewarding. As I said before, I don't know what the next step is. People ask me when you're going to retire, but I work a situation where I don't really have to commute. I don't have an office in the home, but I have an office built next to my home.
You
So,
go. I like
so,
that. Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, so, but all this was done with planning. It wasn't like it wasn't planned. I mean, my plan when I became a CPA was to be able to work out of my home. So I wouldn't have to get up and go. Once I got out of the trash business, I said, I'm going to, if I build me a house, it's going to be a home that has an office in it where I can work. And my children came, and then, it kept growing. So we just now have a house that's next to my house. And we use that as the office. And it's worked out fine. But I don't want to talk about me. It's just that people who come in, we just try to let them not be beat down by the system by thinking that they don't have the resources or the abilities to move forward with their lives, and that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest reward that we have. So I mean, I've met people when they're in dire straits, and we work them out of that. But the tax authorities are breathing down their necks and threatening and all this type of thing. We try to provide relief and let them know that they're not being taken advantage of because they're under some type of stress. So that's the way that we worked. Uh, As I said before, if you treat people with respect and dignity, I don't care what type of business it is, they will reward you with success.
That is so cool. And I appreciate you kind of walking us through, that you're still working and you're still enjoying it, because I don't think you continue to do what you do if you don't like it. So I mean, and you get to a point where you got your family involved in that, so now that is what a lot of people wish for and long for, but never do it. Where if something were to happen to you, that legacy of what you started continues to move forward. What I would love for you to do, though, is let's talk about the retirement thing a little bit, because I think when I think about retirement, and I'm almost 60 now, but I'm thinking I don't want to just uh, I don't think of retirement as I just go sit down and watch TV and go to vacations. I think of it, how do I serve others in a different capacity, where maybe I don't have to, get up every morning at 9 in the morning and work to 5 every night, or, work on the weekends, or, as an entrepreneur, you kind of prepare yourself. But when I've seen folks that do that and stop working and stop doing stuff, they seem to pass away pretty quick. And so I think, this modern day thing that is retirement, where, I think it started in the 20s or 30s, where we're expected to work to 65 and then do nothing. I don't know how that works. I don't know. Maybe you could tell me your thought process on what you believe retirement should be.
Well, first of all, what you're saying is true. I've seen that people retire, and after they retire, they seem to pass away, and I guess that's because they don't have a purpose. I have, a number of clients who retired, and as they say, they flunked retirement because they had to find something else to do. They retired too soon. Retirement is, I don't know how to explain it. I never think about it as being a time when I don't do anything. Uh, I think a retirement is a time that I do things that I would want to do in life. Hopefully, things that will promote, as you say, a legacy. One of the things that I would say young people need to do is make sure that they are around older people who have foresight. I mean, you may have the energy and everything to go forward, but get yourself around somebody that has some experience, who has the foresight because they've been through it, and you won't have to go through as many situations as bad situations. But I think that, working in the community, if you retired and you just want to paint, this is your time to paint. You're not going to be retired. You're going to go out and you're going to paint and you're going to do things that actually you want to do. A lot of people want to travel, and that's fine. I don't have any issues with that. In my case, I'm just probably addicted to doing things because I don't have to commute. I'm just right next door. I get to meet people, different challenges, and so it's not, even though I'm retirement age, it's not something that. And I often tell people I'm retired. I tell them I retired when I reached 40 because that's when I sold the trash business and became a full-time CPA. And it's much different being a CPA than trying to control 30 to 35 employees on
Yeah.
a daily basis, So I don't know how to explain it, but
Okay.
I would, people that I know that are retired, I have clients that multimillionaires, 85, 86 years old, that are still working. I mean, taking trips, going to the office every day, not like me next door. Their office is probably 7 or 8 miles from their home. And they're working and they're planning like they're going to be here for another 20 years.
Wow.
They, they don't. That's the
Yeah.
enthusiasm they carry with it. Every time I go there, Mr. Nelson, I'm going to retire. I'm going to retire. I'm tired of doing this and I'm tired of doing that. And I go back and 30 days later, 40 days later, they're talking about expanding or doing this. But what they're trying to do is build legacy and
Hmm.
build something so their grandchildren will have something to stand up on, some shoulders to stand on.
Yeah.
And that's good. But yeah, I have people who are actually able to retire don't. That's what I've found out. People who are able to retire really don't. It's people who still seeking to get that security is the one that always are thinking about retirement. And but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's such a thing as
Okay.
basically retirement. You're
Well,
gonna do
yeah, I see there's a big difference in having to retire or wanting to retire and can't
right,
because you haven't financially secured yourself or you just have to keep working and you don't want to. And sometimes for somebody else that you don't like, whereas when you're an entrepreneur and you have your own deal and you could retire if you want. I mean, it looks like to me that if you want to walk across the grass and come home, come in your house and take a nap anytime you want. You can do it and go back. So that's to me almost that's retired because you're doing what you want to do when you want to do it and how you want to do it, right?
right. That's what it is. That's the freedom that you look for when you're trying to be self-employed. I think more so than the money is the freedom. Okay.
Did you hear me or did you lose me?
I didn't hear you.
Okay.
You
So
went out.
yeah, somehow I went out. So when I think about health and I think about men that life expectancy for Black men is 72. You have surpassed that. You've been able to stay healthy enough, both mentally and physically, to surpass those odds. What are some of the things that you've done to make sure that you've maintained amount of healthiness that can sustain you over time?
Well, you kind of when I was younger, I wanted to be an athlete. When you're in high school, junior high school, those are sometimes the times you pick up bad habits, and so. By my desire to be an athlete in junior high and high school, I never picked up smoking. I never really, started drinking. So those are two big advantages that I think I had health wise. Is that because of those two things that I never partook of, when I started to get the high blood pressure and these other things, I did my daily visits or yearly visits to the doctor to get checked up. Tried my best to follow good health practices when it comes to eating and to exercising, which I don't do enough of now. But yeah, health is everything. Health is wealth. If you don't have your health, then the rest of the stuff don't really matter. I mean, the monies and all that you accumulated without good health is basically useless. Because as I tell clients that come in when they're obsessed on money, is that you can't do one thing. Only thing you can do with money is spend it. That's all you can do. You can't do anything else with money but spend it. And so if you get to the place where there's nothing else to spend it on, all you can do with money is worry about it. It's going to be the bank going to be okay. How's my stocks doing and those things. So so don't get obsessed with that. If you're able to live a good life, a decent life, and provide for your family, you don't need the 10-bedroom home or 3 or 4 different cars. Can't drive it one at a time. I can be a testament to that. You can't drive it one at a time, and you can't live in one house one at a time. If you want 3 or 4 and you can afford it, fine. But if you out there trying to make it daily on your money, and you can live and make a good life and have a house to stay in, a car to drive, maybe one for your wife or whatever, the extra money that you get can only get you something bigger, better. You already have your needs met. So, if you get a raise and whatever, and you're not going to put that in a retirement account, you buy a more expensive car. But, I mean, all you can do with money is spend it. So you've got to be astute with your money. Hopefully, as you said about health wise, is that you take good care of your health while you're young. You need to take good care of your health and think about that while you're young. Don't wait till you get 75 and try to do these things. Unless you have reached 75 and still doing them, stop.
There we
Stop
go.
doing
There we go.
it. but
Yeah.
but yeah, I've been blessed. Now I am a cancer survivor. So, but
Oh,
that
good.
was
Okay.
yeah, but it was because of early detection that I was not,
So going to the doctor is important and getting your
going to
checkup.
the doctor is important. And my tumor, the test that I was taking revealed that I had a problem, and the problem could not be seen by X-ray. And so, but because I was going to the doctor, had been going to the doctor, they could watch my, over a trend. I had a trend that wasn't trending right. And so they were able to go ahead and check it out. And so I could get that cancer removed before it, got to spreading around and doing more damage. But that was because of early detection. So I would say that's one of the
Oh, that,
biggest things you need to do is make sure you're seeing the medical people.
yeah, that is so cool. Now on the mental health side of things, where that seems to be a bit, where I'm starting to see that a lot in Black men of, whether we talk about trauma a lot, or things that happened when they were kids. And, it sounds like you had your dad and your family and everybody else, but some of these, kids that grew up in the, 90s and seeing, I've interviewed several men now that their dads were drug dealers, and, I guess I should say entrepreneurs that were just more legal, and
Yeah,
so, but the life and having their mom and dad's going in and out of prison and that kind of stuff. What are some things that you believe you were able to do to just keep the right mindset? You grew up in the civil rights time, so I know there was some fluctuations that happened early. But what are some things that you've been able to do to maintain to make sure that your mental health is in a great shape?
jazz, music, jazz.
Music, I
Uh,
love. Okay.
I, it's been. I don't want you to think that I was not exposed to whatever all those things you're talking about, but I feel for the kids you're talking about, the kids the people that grew up in the '90s and the '80s and the '70s, well, the '90s and the '80s, and of course on into the 2000s, who didn't have the protection and the support that the community provided for people of my age. You know, we had the wasn't so much the drug dealers because they were not allowed, but we had protectors in the community. We had Vice in the community. Vice was a part of the Black community, but even those people who were running the Vice had responsibilities. That might sound crazy, but they did. When I was a little kid, we played Little League Baseball. That league in Charlotte was sponsored by Black men, Black Masonic men. And so they had teams in every little Black area. And one of the support, there was no kids. I see kids now out on the street with signs trying to get money for uniforms and money for equipment. No, we didn't do that. That would have been a no-no. We take care of our own. So the Black businesses provided the baseball bats, the uniforms. That was their commitment to the community. The bootleggers, and this is something I had never thought about it until some old people told me about it. The bootleggers and the people running the vices during the summer provided the transportation for us to get from game to game.
Wow.
We, I mean, nobody stayed in the community because everybody knew what everybody else was doing. You
Hmm.
know? And so the men at that time who were in the community protected it. We had people who wanted to run houses of ill repute. We had houses of ill repute, but they were kind of put in one segment of the area. I remember an incident where somebody tried to put one of those houses on the street I lived on, and three or four of the young men went to him. I was there. I was outside playing, I guess, around, but I remember the conversation saying that we're trying to raise families on this block. So we don't want that type of
Hmm.
establishment on this block. The fellow who was running it didn't give him any kickback. He said, okay, I understand. In about 2 weeks, he was gone. 2 3 weeks, he was out of there. He had moved and went somewhere else. So,
Wow.
you the trauma that we have with the young kids, is easily recognizable. And I often put that on my generation.
Hmm.
And that's where I often put that because my generation sort of failed to, when they opened up the doors, when you talk about integration hurting the Black community, it was because a lot of us ran out because the grass looked greener on the other side.
Hmm.
And I hear people say, "Well, the black community is is low income, it's so bad, it's criminal infested." Well, right. I mean, all of the walls ran away. So the crooks coming in and the thieves come in. If you want to improve the black community, you move back into it. I mean, when it's gentrified, that's all that happens. People come in, they move in from outside. All of a sudden, the fellows don't have a place to open air drug sales and all this. So a lot of that I placed on on our community. Drugs was introduced into the community, and we didn't fight back hard enough, as I would say in my generation, when we let our kids go to white schools and to be taught, history in a certain way instead of us monitoring and being on top of that. We sort of went along to get along, depending on other people to look out for our interests. And I put the responsibility not on anybody else, but on ourselves. And that we didn't protect it, and that we didn't, and our kids, you see how they turned out. I often look at people complaining about the kids wearing the pants below their hips and all of this. I said, well, we sent them to other people to teach and to raise. We gave all those, put them on buses, sent them across town, and this is what they sent back to us. We kind of dropped out of the picture as young adults and adults who should have been on the job making sure that didn't happen. So the trauma of I have relatives, I have young relatives that have been traumatized. I
Mhm.
was traumatized. It ain't like going through this. I don't want you to think all of this was without trauma. I mean, I was stopped by the cops when I was a kid, 16 or 17 years old. During the Vietnam era, we were ran out of the malls for no reason at all other than being there and
Wow.
threatening. Yeah, I mean, don't. So you had all of, but I could always run back to my community. When
Mhm.
we got rid of the mall, I had a safe haven. We don't have a safe haven anymore for our kids, and that trauma can be enduring because I have relatives who younger kids who are suffering from those type traumas right now of being evicted from their home and all those other things that we're accustomed to. So I don't know. I don't know if this is what I was on here for or not, but this is just what comes out because I see it from vantage points as a person who works almost exclusively in the community. As far as entrepreneurship, this is just what I'm part of my life.
Oh, I love that. And the clues that you've been able to give us. If you were, as we have a few minutes left, if you were to just kind of talk to young entrepreneurs, young folks that are saying, "Hey, the job that I have isn't going to get me where I need to be." Whatever that courage, whatever the thought process, when you have opportunities that show up, but you say, "Wait a minute, my dream is bigger than this opportunity." And so you knew if you took that job in the big eight firm, you would have had a different life than you have right
Right.
now.
Exactly.
So what could you tell them, just in I guess inspiration? I've done this before, I've been there, that could help them move forward in this.
Plan.
Okay.
Plan.
Okay. Okay.
Write your dream down, what that dream is. Write that dream down
Hmm.
and get you a timeline. What do you want to be in 4, 5 years to make sure that you're marching toward that dream? Um, I have a young man who I started with. He was doing about maybe 120,000 a year back in the early 2000s. We came up. The IRS was auditing him, everything was fine. And this is just a story about planning. Everything was fine. And they came back and said, well, we found out there's another person involved with this company. And I said, well, I don't know of anyone else. He said, well, no, it's another person on the charter, on the LLC charter that's involved. So I don't know, let me go ask him. So I go to this young man who's probably about 43, 44 now. And I said, look, the IRS is telling me they have another person on your charter. They went back. He said, I asked him, who is this person? He said, that's my mom. Your mother? He said, yes. He said, what happened was when I was 18, 19, I saw that I was reading and they said that if you were going to get rental homes or rental houses, you needed to have a LLC. And me being 18, 19, I thought it was going to be a requirement that I have an adult on the charter. So my mother just went with me just so in case I needed an adult. That's how her name appeared there. Well, this young man was planning for the future because he didn't have any houses at that time.
Yeah.
But he has probably 25 or 30 now.
Wow.
And well, I mean, he's the one that outgrew me.
Mm-hmm.
He outgrew me because the last tax return I did for him in 2019, he took in $50 million. And I told him, I said, you're going to have to get someone bigger and I'm going to have to get a firm. Yeah. That's not very fast. But he had planned.
Yeah.
He had planned. He got you so if you're working from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, plan. And if you got a plan, get you a little LLC with an S corp attached to it, so that you have to pay that $200 every year to keep it going. That maybe that'll keep it in your mind that this is what I need to do. But yeah, you have to plan. You have to plan your steps as you go along, and you'll get there. It just depends on how serious you are about that dream. Because I've had too many people who had dreams, and once they got focused, they become realities.
Wow. I
So
think I love planning. That's so important.
plan.
Mentorship, was that a part of, did you have mentors that help you, or do you advise that people find somebody that can help them through to figure out what they're doing? What's your thoughts on mentorship?
Well, yes, I think any help is wanted, especially if you can find someone, as I said before, that has foresight. Because I mean, when I say foresight, experience that has been through what you're going through. You always pay for your experience. That's what I tell people. You always pay for your education. So don't think this is going to be a easy route or something that doesn't cause expense or hurt. But that journey is you got to pay for your experience. That's the first thing I try to lay down to people when they come in is don't get too high, don't get too low. You got to pay for your education. And just like I had to pay for mine and everybody else has to pay. But get some foresight, get somebody who's been that path before you, listen to them, and I'm sure you're going to probably take about 60% of what they said. And the other 40% you think you can do better. That's okay. That's part of the journey. There's no such thing as failure. There's no such thing as failure as long as you learn from it. You know not to go that way anymore. And so that's what I normally try to give to people. Make some investments. Don't think that your 9 to 5, as a fellow told me, and he wasn't a mentor, but he was, again, another person of a different race. I was doing some work for him. He said, son, so you make a living from 9 to 5. So, you make a fortune on the other hours that you're out. So that's when you make your fortune. So don't get discouraged. Make your living from 9 to 5. But when you get off, from 7 to 9 or from 7 to 12, you work for you. You make your fortune then. So that's, well, you got time to plan and do things in those hours. So that's what I would tell people. Is people that's coming along. Is, of course, I'm gonna say find yourself a good lawyer. A good investor, a good accountant, and go forward, and knowing that you're gonna have to pay for your education.
I love it.
So,
Build that team, which is so important.
yeah.
Well, Mr. Nelson, I just appreciate you being on today. Giving us your experience, letting us know what it takes to be successful. I've grown a lot, learned, taken several notes or several pages of notes here, and just have enjoyed our conversation. And I think that's, this is one of the lost things that people do is just have conversations with people who've gone before you that have experienced stuff that can guide the way, and you've definitely done that for us. And for those of you who are listening to this podcast, I hope that you then subscribe. We are in the 80s of doing these, of folks, of 80 different individuals that are successful in their own right, of Black men who have been doing stuff to make this world a better place. And so thank you again for being on the show. Do you have any last words that you want to share before we are in?
I thank you, and I congratulate you on your journey. And I think this is something that's really beneficial. And so again, I give you thanks, and hope that in the future that you'll stop by and see me when you come down the elevation. And
I sure will.
okay.
If I can't find you at your job, I'll find you at your house next door.
Oh yeah, that's right. Only two places here. You're exactly right. Okay, so I wish everybody out there much success and much happiness in the future.
All right. Thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful, just incredible day today. Don't forget, you are born for a purpose, and fulfilling that purpose is probably one of the best things that you can do. And we'll look forward to talking to you on the next episode.
Okay. Thank you.